Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Minister. Figures I've received from your own department over the last 2 weeks, Minister, suggest a significant variance in the cost for the delivery, management and maintenance of social housing from traditional approved housing body and local authority delivery to the first bundle of the public-private partnership houses that are currently under construction. Can you give us as much detail as you can about the cost of that public-private partnership, and can you comment specifically on the concern that many of us have of that variance in costs between the more traditional methods of delivery and the public-private partnerships?
Again, Chair, glad to have the question to bring some clarity to this as well, because I think the Deputy's question and indeed some of your comments publicly on this issue appear to be based on an assumption that the balance of the contract for Bundle 1 of the social housing PPP programme after the pure construction costs excluded is all attributable to management and maintenance of the homes to be delivered on the contract. And this assumption is not actually true and is not actually accurate, so I'm happy to try to break down the figures, which, while I can't give all the science behind it at a later stage, that will come out. So the full value of the PPP contract includes a range of costs. The construction costs cover what might be referred to as the pure bricks and mortar costs in respect of the homes involved and associated infrastructure, including play and community facilities. So it's not just actual houses as well as other facilities around that. The remainder of the contract includes, again, not just management and maintenance costs, but also other costs, including the cost of finance for the project, projected inflation over the 25 years of the contract's operational life, and the cost of complying with other terms of the contract, including that certain quality requirements are met when the homes involved are passed over to the local authorities concerned at the end of the 25-year period. That's the key part. They have to be handed over at the end of this in a certain condition, and that's probably a key part in relation to the PPP. It is a different model of delivery with its own requirements, which can give rise to what are incompatible comparisons between individual elements across different methods of delivery. And again, it's one method in the toolkit of many others as well, and it's not, you're comparing apples with oranges when you compare it directly with the approved housing body situation as well. And I understand where there's confusion there, but at all times there is a value for money part of this. Actually, at 4 different stages we have to apply a value for money process as well to it. So, of course, just like all other social housing projects delivery mechanisms, it is essential that homes delivered through public-private partnerships represent value for money for the taxpayer. In that regard, there are clear requirements laid down centrally by the Department of Public Expenditure and Reform, through which the National Development Finance Agency, as the professional financial advisors for projects of this kind, have developed a public sector benchmark which reflects the cost of delivering the contract concerned through traditional procurement mechanisms. This is then used as the benchmark against which value for money tests are undertaken at a number of stages in the procurement. There's about 4 different stages, primarily when it comes to assessing the final tenders submitted. The successful tender on the Bundle 1 of the social housing public-private partnership was assessed in this manner and was lower than the public sector benchmark, thereby representing value for money.
Thanks, Minister. Deputy to respond.
Chair, and thank you, Minister, for the reply. I have to say, none of what you've said reassures me that there still isn't a significant cost variance between AHB availability, payment agreements and the public-private partnership. At the heart of this is a thing called the public sector benchmark, which is what is used to calculate that so-called value for money exercise. But none of us get to see it. There's no transparency around it, and therefore we're not in a position to be able to verify what the Minister is saying, either here today or in the parliamentary questions previously. I have a concern, for example, that on the basis of what the Minister has said here today, the construction cost alone per unit is €225,000. That is higher than figures I've received from the Department of Housing on comparative costs, for example, for local authority build. But also, for example, in this contract with the public-private partnership, there is a different inflation calculation to the one that's used for approved housing bodies. There's a different calculation for what you call the quality requirements. And, of course, there's an element of profit and risk adjustment. So while I accept the 2 types of contracts, availability agreements with the HB sector and PPPs aren't the same, they do very similar things. And nothing you've said has reassured me that there isn't a cost difference, if not a significant cost difference. So, can you tell us, have you, Minister, actually seen the public sector benchmark yourself directly, and are you satisfied that both the methodology used and the price comparisons do represent value for money to the taxpayer?
Again, the key part here is that I'm satisfied with the process. I'm not given all the actual figures, but I am very satisfied with the process of how this is handled, and that there is at 4 stages we assess the value to make sure the taxpayer is getting value for money, and that's how we judge this as well. So to probably talk you through the process as well, the key criteria for assessing whether a PPP project represents value for money for the executor follows the guidance set out by the central PPP unit in the Department of Public Expenditure and Reform. This guidance sets out 4 specific tests that are applied in the case of PPPs over the course of the planning and procurement process. The tests focus on assessing whether or not the PPP approach compares favourably with the alternative cost of using traditional procurement to achieve the same result. And again, there's different methods of traditional procurement, but they're all compared to make sure we're getting the best value for money and that we're not losing out in this situation as well. Bundle 1 of the social housing PPP programme has met the relevant thresholds for each of the 4 tests in this rigorous process. And I am confident that it demonstrates value for money. And that's your concern, and it's the same concern I would have, the same concern Minister Murphy would have as well, that we deliver housing quickly, but also at top quality and at top value for money. And we are satisfied that the process does deliver that. There is information you want to have released, and I can understand why you want that, but it wouldn't be appropriate at this stage to do that. We are committed to that after the 3 months that we can release at a later stage.
So, if I take it right, Minister, you haven't seen the public sector benchmark, so you can't unequivocally say that it represents value for money, although you're taking it on trust. But what I'd also say is this, is that, for example, if you take 2 housing projects that commence construction today, the public-private partnership that's currently under construction and traditional social housing delivered by a local authority and approved housing body, what is unequivocal from the information that we have is the public-private partnership is going to get a significantly larger amount of money to deliver the units, to manage, to maintain, and that's before we even get into the issue of the risk adjustment or the cost. So I suppose what I would say to you is given that you haven't seen the public sector benchmark, why won't you publish it now? This contract has been signed, the contractors are on site. You could publish this one now because it is no longer of any commercial sensitivity to Bundle 2 and Bundle 3 because they will have separate public sector benchmarks. And will you give a commitment that when that public sector benchmark is eventually published, you'll either come to the House or you'll come to the committee where we can properly scrutinise it. And if I'm wrong at that stage and there is value for money, I'm more than happy to accept it, and I would hope you do the same.
We're a very open, transparent department. When it is appropriate to do so, we would have no problem publishing that and explaining it and defending it coming to committee. I'd be very familiar with a lot of the figures around these houses and what they cost on all the sites and through all the schemes. And I'm very confident and very happy to confirm to you that this is in line with where it should be. But again, I haven't seen the actual benchmark, but I know the figures of what they're. But again, it wouldn't be appropriate for me to see the benchmark because it's not published yet. It's not information that I would have in my hands or in my head, for that matter, either. But there's a process put in place there which involves a lot of proper procedures to be gone through to make sure we're getting value for money here. With respect to, you are again probably comparing apples and orchards, apples and oranges. This is a 25-year contract. They will be paid per month, and that's for the upkeep of the house, management of the house, and all that goes with it. And at the end of 25 years, the state will own that house, and it has to be in a condition fit for purpose and so on, set down in the contract. That's different to the contract that is operated by the approved housing bodies, and it's very different. And please, I'd ask you to understand that. I think you probably do understand that, but you might want to just admit that in public. But actually, there's a process there that I'm happy to bring you through.
Move now to the next question. Thank you, Minister.